Hello, my honeys, and welcome to August. It is absolutely nutty that we are once again at the time of year where school starts up. It feels like we just started the summer vacation yesterday. But there are always silver linings. In this case, we're going to start to see the fall lineups of various international festivals, new shows, all of that's going to be released and announced very soon. So still a few things to look forward to before the official end of summer. And now our hand-selected headlines by yours truly. The Beesness begins. Last week continued to see commentary on the so-called Last Supper performance at the Olympics ceremony, even drawing criticism from the Vatican. But as Headlines and Hyperallergic announced, that performance was something else entirely. As we covered in last week's Beesness Olympic section, this presentation was met with a lot of conflicting public reactions. Conservative critics, for example, erroneously claimed that it parodied Da Vinci's famous Last Supper and thus mocked Christian beliefs. But the Olympic ceremony's artistic team took to X/Twitter recently to clarify that the performance was not inspired by Leo's work, but rather the slightly less famous, equally art historical trope of the godly festivities. In other words, we see Dionysus/Bacchus here because it's meant to be a depiction of the Greek gods partying it up on the famous mythical mountain. So another connection. And now we all know. As we only had that one follow-up, let's move on to announcements and discoveries, the first of which, Mural Arts Philadelphia unveiled the first of its 6 youth anti-violence murals. The mural project is a result of partnerships between Mural Arts Philly, the city's Parks and Recreation Department, and local school kids. The funding for the initiative, however, is coming from the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, a policymaking government agency for criminal justice and crime prevention. The agency promotes arts engagement amongst youth in statistically high-risk zip codes. There will be 6 murals in total by the end of the project at 6 rec centers located around the city. The first is at Markward Rec Center in Fittler Square, designed by a group of 5 to 12-year-old children in an after-school program under the guidance of lead artist Cala Rosa. This headline, of course, caught our attention because it's all about community building and crime prevention through the arts. The city's chief cultural officer, Val Gay, says it's proven that bored young people get into silly and then increasingly bad things, but the engagement activities give them a way to redirect and productively use their energies. Artist Cala Rosa notes as well, quote, "Any opportunity to create a moment of contemplation and creating together is the important part. Instead of addressing the issue directly, the importance of creating the space, of creating something beautiful together helps a lot more," end quote. We also heard last week that a giant rubber duck and its copyright controversy are headed to New York City. The duck, assigned the title of world's largest and dubbed Mama, will be on view in eastern Long Island in New York. But the issue is that this is said to be an unapproved copy of Florentine Hoffman's world-famous inflatable sculpture that began its world travels in 2007. The so-called knockoff, aka Mama, made its debut in 2014 at the Tall Ships Festival in LA. The organizer for it, by the last name Samborski, aimed to set this duck in contrast to the giant floating ships nearby. Samborski, knowing of Hoffman's 2007 inflatable duck, tried to get Hoffman on board at this time and paid $57,000 or 50,000 euros for designs for the duck. Samborski alleges, however, that he only received basic sketches of the design and had to assemble the duck for the event on his own. In 2015, Samborski brought the duck back again, and this time Hoffman complained. But Samborski still beat him to the trademark punch for world's largest duck. In 2015, Samborski brought Mama back, and this time Hoffman complained. However, Samborski still beat him to the trademark punch for world's largest duck, so really all Hoffman has been able to do in the last several years is make various complaints through his lawyers. This was especially true with new showings of Mama in 2017. Ultimately, Hoffman can threaten legal action all he wants, but it seems unlikely that this is the case. He will follow through on it because of the trademark not being his. In another issue related to licensing and trademarks, an artist came forward last week to say that an LA billboard reproduced his text without permission. Artist David Horvitz was walking around the Sawtell neighborhood in West LA, an area with a long Japanese American history, and spotted a billboard above a former hardware store. As for the text in question, he wrote it in 2009 as part of a year-long project which used email as well as Tumblr to disseminate text-based instructions to his audience in a very Fluxus-esque, experimental, and interactive form of art. Horvitz is noted as a very trickster-esque figure in the art world, someone who plays a lot with the ideas of ownership, appropriation, and intellectual property. And that's part of what makes this case so compelling. Though the email as well as the Tumblr accounts are defunct, some of the content continues to float around the internet. In fact, Horvitz said, quote, "If it was another artist doing it, recycling it into an artwork, that's different. But this is an ad campaign," end quote. He publicly demanded, upon that call out of the use of his text, a $1 million licensing fee for the billboard. No response has been given to that yet. So, honeys, as much as we care about artists' rights and trademarks and everything, this story absolutely has a humorous element to it. He is one to talk about unsanctioned uses of art and text. Back in 2023, Horvitz did both an unapproved, unlicensed show of the late French artist André Cataret, as well as T-shirts printed with the phrase "John Lennon broke up Fluxus," in a cheeky reversal of the misogynistic explanation for the Beatles' demise. In the Cataret case, the estate denounced his decision to mount it in his LA garden, but Horvitz argued that he was honoring Cataret's own subversive methods. As for those Lennon T-shirts, the gallery selling them received a cease and desist letter from lawyers representing both Yoko Ono and the estate of Lennon, alleging trademark violations. Horvitz responded to that by making the lawyers' letter into another T-shirt. It appears that some of those decisions may be coming back around to bite him in the butt. Also from last week, 5 of Brancusi's modernist sculptures joined UNESCO's World Heritage List. The 5 are located in the Romanian town of Târgu Jiu, and this distinction affords them advanced legal protections beyond what they would have already had. Constantine Brancusi was a Romanian by birth who spent significant amounts of time in France during the 20th century. The 5 sculptures were made to honor those who died defending the town during World War I. The addition of the sculptures to the World Heritage List is part of a bigger, growing resurgence of recognition for the early modernist within the last year and a half. From our legal and institutional side, our first headline is that New York's Jack Shainman Gallery sued an art collector last week, claiming he owed them nearly $300,000. The named collector is James R. Hedges IV, according to Art News. He has called himself the, quote, go-to guy for Warhol photography, end quote. He claims to be the owner of the largest private collection of the pop artist's photos and has organized various shows for the artist. Its allegations of debts were based on the sales of 19 artworks that the gallery had consigned to him. Filed in the Supreme Court of the state of New York, it claims that Hedges and his gallery, the Santa Monica-based Hedges Projects, were consigned these works via invoices dated between June of 22 and May of 2024. Though no details were given in those documents about exactly which artworks the gallery consigned to Hedges and his gallery, besides the fact that they were supposed to sell these works to collectors. The Shainman Gallery alleges that Hedges and his own gallery kept and used these funds for their own benefit, never turned over the profits as they were supposed to. Says Hedges Projects, upon hearing about the suit, quote, "It's unfortunate the Jack Shainman Gallery decided to file a claim while the parties are in the midst of business negotiations. We strongly disagree and plan to assert counterclaims of our own if necessary," end quote. So I'm sure we'll see quite a bit more to come there. One headline in particular grabbed quite a bit of attention. A French museum has extended the official invite for visitors to get naked for a new nudist 10th anniversary exhibition. To be titled Naturist Paradises, it will take place at the Museum of European and Mediterranean Civilizations, aka the MUSEM in Marseille, South France. I just about died when I read that, honeys, because that is not the vibe I got from that museum at all. Marseille seemed very prim and proper to me, but I guess they let their hair down sometimes. In any case, the show will chart the history of nudism over the last century, particularly in France. The nation is recognized by many reputable travel sites as one of the most nude-friendly in the world, with 397 public nudist beaches and 212 naturist campsites. Interested visitors will have the chance to leave their clothes at home on certain Tuesdays through December 9th in special viewings organized by local nudist groups. The show also features 600 plus paintings, photos, films, magazines, sculptures, and objects. The museum has said that it wants to make clear that, quote, nudism isn't just a fad of the 60s, end quote, and notes that a new wave of nudity has arisen, wanting to draw connections between that and the contemporary search for healthy vegetarian diets and natural therapies, as well as the interests in meditation and yoga in pop culture. I will absolutely be reading the reviews on this show, and I will keep you posted, honeys. A bit more of a somber story. A Kansas man was sentenced last week to prison for stealing a bronze Jackie Robinson statue. The necessary background on this one, honeys. The city of Wichita was shocked back in January when the bronze statue was cut off at the ankles and found days later smoldering in a trash can in a local city park. A man by the name of Ricky Alderetti was found guilty and sentenced Friday for charges related to 3 different cases. He pled guilty to the theft of the sculpture and was ordered to pay $41,500 in restitution for stealing it. He received a total of 15 years in prison, however, because mostly of a burglary that happened a few days after the statue's theft in January. As for what's next, the League 42 Youth Baseball League plans to unveil a replacement statue of Robinson crafted from the original mold Monday at a park in Wichita. League 42 primarily serves low-income youth and is named after Robinson's uniform number with the Brooklyn Dodgers, whom he broke with over the Major League's color barrier in 1947. Our source for this story, AP News, noted that after the original was stolen, donations to replace the statue rolled in, including $100,000 specifically from the MLB. The pair of bronze cleats that were left behind in the theft are now on display at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, Missouri. And lots of buzz was created last week by the reappearance of Andy Warhol's long-lost portrait of Blondie singer Debbie Harry. So the portrait. It was thought to be lost, but has resurfaced in rural Delaware, where it was displayed for nearly 40 years in the home of Commodore's digital technician, Jeff Bruette, who taught Warhol how to use the computer in the artist's famed factory. Excitement over the work only grew when it was announced that it's going up for private sale by the owner. The 1985 portrait, along with a signed disc of 10 digital image files by Warhol, will be sold, but the first to report, the New York Post, did not specify when or where. Warhol created the artworks on an early Amiga 1000 home computer as part of a live promotion event during his time as a brand ambassador for the now defunct tech company Commodore. Bruette was quoted in Art News as saying, quote, especially after the recent explosion of NFTs and digital art, anyone who's heard the story has been completely riveted. I thought it was time the world got to interact with this extraordinary artwork the way it was meant to be experienced, end quote. Unless a major museum coughs up some serious funds, though, not sure how much of the world is going to see it. The work and the 10 files have a $26 million opening asking price, perhaps because, as Harry herself has said, there are more than likely only 2 copies in existence, and she has one of them. And our last 2 stories of the day. First, a statue honoring Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna was unveiled outside Crypto.com Arena last week. The unveiling was a private ceremony on Friday in downtown LA. Unveiled in a private LA ceremony, it depicts both the NBA legend and his daughter seated with an angel's wings behind them. They wear clothes that are similar to what they wore when they attended the last game at Staples Center on December 29th of 2019. The plaque at the base of it makes reference to his famous "Girl Dad" quote. It is also the second of 3 planned monuments to Bryant, with the first unveiled in February of this year and the third to be unveiled sometime next season. And finally, honeys, you may have been wondering about those giant painted heads that appeared floating in the Seine last week. According to Hyperallergic, the monumental reproductions of these art historical icons really only show their eyes just above the water and seem to look on to the cruising parade festivities. Really quick and simple explanation behind this. It's an artistic choice meant to anchor the games through these continuous Louvre collection references. That is why you can find versions of The Portrait of a Black Woman, The Ace of Diamonds Cheater, and Gabrielle d'Estrées and one of her sisters on the Seine. Okay, honeys, that's what I've got for you this week. Make sure you tune back in Thursday to catch Concrete Memories. I will talk to you all soon, and take care until then. This podcast and this episode were created, produced, hosted, and researched, as well as fact-checked by yours truly, Celia Bugno. It was edited by our brand new sound engineer and producer of our intro music, Chris Meinhold. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all of your favorite streaming platforms as well as your social medias.